Since the 1950s, 18 nuclear power stations have been built along the Great Lakes shoreline in Canada and the United States. The Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement historically recognized the risks that radioactive waste poses to Great Lakes water quality. Ultimately, all nuclear power plants are eventually retired. Storage of wastes and decommissioning of reactors is part of our shared reality. With this in mind, the Great Lakes Water Quality Board sought to find consensus among a variety of stakeholder groups to create a report that recommends best practices for decommissioning nuclear facilities in the Great Lakes.
We all took our own views into it, but this was not a report on whether or not nuclear power was viable or not. This was on how do we deal with the reality of what we have right now, and how can we protect the water in the process of decommissioning aging nuclear plants.
I'm really proud of the work product of this report. In our society, policy and political issues can sometimes be reduced to sound bites and us versus them. And I think it's really important for the public to know that you can dive into science and risk and judgment in a very deep and nuanced way and bring people of different perspectives together around recommendations for how to address hard problems in ways that can be unifying and not divisive.
The report's recommendations focus on 4 topics. First, the board addressed the importance of transparency and public engagement in the decommissioning process.
The people who live in the community, the people who have worked on the issue for ages, have incredibly important information to bring forward that neither the company or the government would have had without them there. They're an incredible resource to the decision makers, not this barrier that there's a tendency to look at them as. So we recommend that a community advisory board be set up for each of the plants that is closed down and goes through the decommissioning process around the Great Lakes.
Another set of recommendations suggests that regulators and industry consider the importance of the Great Lakes when locating temporary and permanent nuclear waste storage facilities.
The reality of the waste problem for the Great Lakes is that we have existing waste that is still remaining on the shores in many nuclear plants in the Great Lakes. And that is a concern for many of us in the industry and outside of the industry. The reality is the federal governments of both Canada and the United States have yet to meet their obligation to find a secure long-term waste storage facility that we can permanently store nuclear waste. And so what we tried to do in this report is come up with some actionable recommendations in both the short and the long term to make the storage of nuclear safe, particularly around the Great Lakes, and put the public's mind at ease that the governments are taking care to protect the Great Lakes.
The third set of recommendations seeks to improve safety measures for the eventual transportation of nuclear waste, which is a major concern of communities along these transit routes.
Perhaps the greatest challenge with nuclear power generation is disposal of waste. And right now waste is being maintained at the site after decommissioning, but eventually it's going to be transported. The concern for local government is that that transportation, whether it's by rail or by truck, that it be safe as it goes through the community and not endanger the citizens of any given city.
The board also recommends best practices for remediation and long-term monitoring. And perhaps no other group is as deeply concerned about the long-term health of the Great Lakes as the First Nations, Métis, and tribes.
For Indigenous people, we're taught to consider the consequences of our actions through a time period long enough to encompass 7 generations. And the long-term implications of the decommissioning of a site, they don't stop when the physical building is gone. They don't even stop when the waste that's there is hauled away, is gone. In working on this report, one of the views that we were able to get in, the concerns that we had from the Indigenous communities, were to be sure that this long-term view was being part of the final product.
The International Joint Commission Great Lakes Water Quality Board spent 4 years in a collaborative, consensus-driven process to develop this report.
Throughout the process, we listened to voices, important voices from the community, from industry, from environment. We went out as a body, the work group, and met with those individuals. And all of those voices, all those opinions were incorporated in the final report.
The board members all agree that consistent binational standards and best practices for decommissioning nuclear power facilities are imperative to protect the Great Lakes. To read the report or contact the board for more information, visit ijc.org/WQB.